Okay. Right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. There's a few other people still joining, so I will keep an eye on that and keep letting people in. I hope everyone's okay. You're all on mute at the moment, so feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any questions at any point, or use the chat to ask a question. So this one is hopefully all about facilities management. It obviously is quite a big piece of work, facilities management. So I've tried to cover as much as I can at high level and not gone into too much detail on all aspects, because we could be here for, well, the rest of the lockdown really if I went into too much detail on it. So hopefully this is a nice taster of what certainly my view of facilities management and some tips and effective ways of running facilities management possibly are for you and your office. So I'll get started. So I'll go through a quick introduction about what FM is, areas of responsibility, my view of the difference to an office management role, because the two are often talked about in the same breadth, but actually traditionally they're different. Maintenance, what a PPM calendar is and how you can use it, cleaning, utilities and energy, and any questions that you might have at the end as well. So what is facility management, or FM? It's defined in the International Facility Management Association as a profession that encompasses multiple disciplines to ensure functionality, comfort, safety and efficiency of the built environment, whatever workplace that might be, by integrating people, place, process and technology. So that's why I say, when you think about how much just that very description in itself pertains to, there is an awful lot in there. And so I've focused really on what I call the building itself and the house really that we reside in when we're in our offices or in our workplaces. So main areas of responsibility, and obviously there are some beyond this, but again, to me, in my interpretation of FM, these are the main ones. So proactive and general maintenance, they're going in a different order. Cleaning toilets and shower facilities. Reactive maintenance, it might have caught up now, no. Waste management, lifts, stairs and escalators. Lighting and emergency lighting, this is fun, see where it goes next. Window cleaning, utilities and energy, pest control, life safety systems to include your fire alarms, your smoke heads, your sprinklers, so all those kind of life safety systems that you will generally see in your workplace. UPS, so that's your uninterrupted power supply or generator for power, might not be controlled by you, of course. Means of escape, routes and signage, so that's the element of safety that the previous slide we've talked about as well. Security and environmental and sustainability, which again is in itself one big area of responsibility. So they're the main things, and there's probably an awful lot more that you can think of as well. And again, it's very much down to the interpretation of what you consider facilities management to be. But this is how I see it, as I say. So how does a facilities management position differ to an office management one? As I say, my view, I think it's much more about looking after what they consider the hard services compared to the soft services. So for example, the parts that are connected to your physical facilities like air conditioning or HVAC, the soft services of a workplace can also be, and are very much also part of a facilities management role, such as the cleaning, security, waste management. But generally, most other soft services are sat under an office management position, like catering, your general office supplies like your stationery and your printable items, your branded items, those kind of goods, meeting room management, reception, telecoms, IT, the post room perhaps might come under that, although some people would argue that that's also facilities management. So you can see how the two can really start to be blurred and blended. But if your title is office manager, you'll probably have in your job description facilities management or managing the facilities, something to that effect. So I've tried to separate the two as much as possible to demonstrate what that means by the facilities. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, and I think really office management is the one where you do wear lots and lots of different hats. You still do if you are purely, and I don't mean just in a negative way, just a facilities manager. Like, for example, you may have a facilities manager for your building. If you're a tenant in that building, you'll have a facilities manager, and they will generally look after all of those things and probably not much else, because they're not looking after a business in itself. Their primary focus is to look after that building and maintain that building and the facilities within it. Whereas you as an office manager probably get involved in HR, accounts, marketing, you know, business continuity planning, pandemics, and all this kind of other stuff. So you can see how the two start to become different there, and why certainly in an office management role traditionally you would have so many more hats, because this section of that job in itself, you know, contains 20 plus different hats to wear. Hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer, or probably not. Maintenance. So a really key part of a facilities management position is to ensure that your systems and services are maintained. Some will definitely need to be serviced and checked and maintained by law. And there are some areas that you can look at here, because this is the safety part of the role, and health and safety may fall into your job description as well. If not, you should really be clued up on which ones should be maintained by law, such as, for example, those life safety systems like your sprinklers, your smoke heads, your fire alarms, and so on. They're all a legislative requirement to make sure that you're doing tests and maintaining them, so that obviously they continue to work as they should be. Other items will be recommended to be serviced and maintained as part of what might be best practice, say that right, and or to make sure that your warranty stays valid on the equipment. So things like air conditioning, for example, if you've just moved into an office and you've got a whole new air conditioning system in place, it might be much like having a car and having that on perhaps a leased agreement or a finance agreement. You need to make sure that you're getting your service done at every so many miles, or every year, or whatever it might be, to keep that warranty, to keep that agreement in place. And it's much the same with air conditioning and some other items. So make sure that you're aware on those items in your workplace. Also, I think it's really important, because some types of equipment may require certain companies who are qualified or who have specific certifications to maintain that equipment need to be used. So you can't just use perhaps your normal contractor or your maintenance guy to do it. It must, or girl, it must be someone that has got the certification to look after that specific equipment, that's an approved contractor by said manufacturer or said company that you bought it from, in order to retain that warranty. So just be aware of those things, just in case they apply to your equipment. So what is proactive maintenance? PPM is planned preventative maintenance. So anything that's really scheduled in advance, probably plotted throughout the year, for regular maintenance and regular intervals to be looked at, particularly again for things like your life safety equipment. So it might be, you know, that your smoke heads need testing every 6 months, for example. Your fire alarm and control panel, or you should be doing weekly tests, or your building should be doing weekly tests on your fire alarm system and looking at the control panel. So that's a legal legislative requirement coming in there. So they'll be plotted out hopefully on a calendar, and I've got an example to show you on here, what should be done when throughout the year. So you've got that lovely, wonderful organised oversight of, okay, this is when all my maintenance is being done, and this is kind of committed to via our contractor, assuming that you're not doing this stuff directly. But yeah, things like access control and CCTV, they'll also need maintaining, probably only 6 monthly or annually at the very most. I would, or at the very least I should say, really access control and CCTV, you just want it to make sure that all your readers are working and are connected, and to make sure that your cameras are working properly, that you've got times and dates and things correct, that there's no upgrades to be had in the system, that kind of stuff. So yeah, so make sure that you've got suitable contracts in place for what you need there. Gas suppression system is something that is in a comms room. It's a fire safety mechanism that starves the oxygen in the room, hopefully suppressing any fire that's in there. So if you have got something like that, or any early particle detection systems, sometimes manufactured by companies like Vesda, make sure that they're also being checked and maintained. Emergency lighting, obviously that will need to be checked monthly and annually. Lifts and escalators, some people have those in their demise. Obviously, if not, they're probably part of the building's requirement to do it. They're a bit of a pain if you do have them in your demise, that's for sure, because you have to have super duper qualified engineers, and you'll know that they probably break down a fair bit. But yeah, they definitely need to be maintained. Air conditioning, water systems, taps and showers, that's looking at your Legionnaires, your L8 regulations there, and making sure that that's all maintained and tested and checked, and the scaling and things is done as well. Sprinklers, fire doors, fire extinguishers. Fire doors should be checked. If you're not doing it, or your maintenance guys or girls aren't doing it, then ask them to. It's looking at things like the seals and making sure that they're still compliant and they're still in working order, because they are a fire safety measure. They are, they will have been put in your building or in your demise for a reason, to hold back a fire, to contain a fire, and stop it spreading as quickly, and give you 30 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever rating that door might have. So it's important, just much like you would a fire extinguisher, to maintain those doors and check for any issues, closing times, as well as the seals and things. UPS, the uninterrupted power supply, or generators, both need to be looked at and tested as well. Boilers, if you've got any boilers in your premises or that are in your demise. Disabled fire alarm pull cord in the toilets, that's a little triangular thing, or you might have it in a shower room. That should be tested, ideally weekly as well, particularly if you have got disabled visitors or staff. And then your portable appliance testing and your 5-year fixed wire testing, or EICR testing, for your electrical distribution boards and circuits that sit under the floor, or over the floor, on the ceiling, if they be the setup of your building. So that's not obviously exhaustive. There might be other things that you would do it on, but that is generally what you would want proactive maintenance on, that's planned, that's in a calendar or a schedule somewhere that you have sight of. Okay, so PPM tips. Usually you would have a contract or an agreement set up with a firm who would manage this for you, normally known as your M&E contractor, your mechanical and electrical contractor. The mechanical bit referring to your air conditioning systems, that's the mechanical element, and the electrical element obviously being everything else in terms of electrics. These are the things that often require maintenance and checks as part of legislative guidelines and best practice to keep your equipment in good order, which we've already talked about. If you're not in a contract, I would say to at least have some sort of agreement, and have perhaps a PPM calendar or a list of the equipment they should be maintaining on your behalf attached to that, even if it's just an engagement letter or something, because you are putting a lot of responsibility on that contractor, and you obviously, being the office manager, facilities manager, whatever your title may be, you're being given that responsibility from your management, your directors, whoever, to make sure that these sort of things are done, and you're then passing that on again. So you will want some sort of agreement that protects them, but protects you as your company, or on behalf of your company. Making sure that you've got their insurance as well. There's some other tips about contracts later on, I think, in relation to cleaning, but yeah, make sure you've got a copy of their insurance and their certifications. You know, you want to make sure that they're qualified electricians before they go touching your distribution boards. Yeah, so being aware of those kind of things. Your engineers might be based on site and part of the building facilities management team, or they may be contracted in on what they consider to be a mobile team, so they come to your site to do these PPM items, and then also perhaps on call when you need them to do things like light bulb changes and so on and so forth. So you may have bought certain hours a week or a month from them that you schedule in, and then have an SLA for a call out of maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it might be, if they're not based on site or 24/7 in your building. You should have sight of the calendar outlining all the maintenance for your year ahead, and ensure that the legislative and other requirements are met. And all records should be kept on site with you, or particularly if the team are part of the building management team, they'll probably keep everything wherever that FM team are based. I would ask to see those checks at regular intervals. Go and have a look at the records. Don't take it for read that they are doing them, and you know, put them on the spot. Go and do your own audit, because it is still your responsibility, even though you're passing it on. So go and do a check when you're back in the office, if there's time, and make sure that they're doing them. And it's quite interesting to see the different formats that they'll have to sign these things off in, and the reports that they'll have to write up about them. So here's an example of a PPM calendar. I couldn't fit the whole thing on screen, so the right side just continues at the bottom of the left side generally, but you can see there's lots of little squares where the cells are from the rows and columns. So you would just have the dates throughout the year, and then the frequency determined, so monthly, weekly, whatever it might be, and then you would probably put like an X or a green in the box when it's done, a red perhaps if it's been missed, much like a red and a green status, and then, you know, a yellow or an orange or something when it's due, so it's coming up for that week, depending on how sophisticated it is. If your building has got a building management system, a BMS in it, sometimes these sort of things are built into that, which is great, and you can still ask to see a copy of it, and they should be able to print you a version or get a PDF or something over to you to show what's due when. Some of them will also show what companies are doing it, because a lot of the time your M&E contractor won't necessarily be doing it directly themselves. They'll outsource it again. So anything that's more specialist, like for example doing the maintenance of your air conditioning systems, your comms room, gas suppression checks, all these kind of things are probably going to be outsourced rather than done in-house. So they might well also show you the third-party contractors there that are doing that. So that's an example of a PPM calendar. I'm just checking chat because there is something that's come up there, but for some reason my chat screen's not coming up. Can't see it, just bear with me a sec. Don't know why. Oh, there we go. Is there a template of the calendar on the portal? No, I do have a draft though that I need to finish. It's quite an extensive one, so I'll prioritise that for the next week or so to try and get one uploaded, and then you can use that. I've got a couple of different versions as well, so I'll start with the more complicated one first, and then I'll add a slightly simpler version. Yes and no. So what is reactive maintenance? So you'll hear all these kind of jargon that your engineers will talk to you about, saying, oh, it's a reactive, or it's proactive, or PPM, or whatever, you know. They might say to you, we're going to come in this weekend to do reactives, and you might think, what are you talking about, mate? This is where the difference is. So proactive is that schedule stuff, you know what you need to do because it's that best practice or that legislative requirement, and insurance requirements, another reason, or keep your warranty, all planned maintenance. Reactive is really because things have gone wrong, or because they've spotted an issue, a fix, whatever it might be. So it's reacting to something that's not expected, not planned for. Sometimes it's called corrective maintenance or fixes, break fixes. There's all kind of different expressions for it, but generally in this industry it's reactive maintenance. It probably will come out once you've had your PPMs done. So a really good example of this is PAT testing and the EICR test as well on the electrical circuit. When you have PAT, you'll probably get a list, a report afterwards showing all the items that have been tested. It will say pass, 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 and then you'll have failures and then recommendations there. And sometimes they'll just remove the items whilst they're doing the test if they find them to be defective or faulty or hazardous, whatever it might be, and they'll have that written up. And then they'll probably give you a quote to say these are the costs to fix those items. So yeah, as I say here, there will probably be a fee associated with the labour and parts required to make that fix, to make the equipment operable again in the way that it should be. Sometimes doing that fix, and this is a good one to highlight, I think, will count as part of your routine maintenance. So take, for example, something like a fire evacuation. If you're, let's say, so what we're in now, April, if you've got one scheduled for, say, September, and when we go back to the offices in, say, August, and the fire alarm happens to go off, for whatever reason it went off, real fire, you know, someone triggered it by accident, whatever it might be, you can actually count that as your evacuation test and push your September date back by another 6 months or year, whatever. And it's the same with some of this routine maintenance stuff. So make sure that whatever they're doing, you're asking that question to see if it counts as part of routine maintenance, and therefore should some of the dates be adjusted, particularly if it's things that are disruptive, or you have to turn the power off and you have to be in the building, you know, and it's things where actually you could save some time, money, etc. So do check that whether it counts as your routine maintenance or not. It should be recorded on your schedule and paperwork that's retained as to what works were carried out, including all fixes. So not just for your planned stuff and your checklists of, you know, they've checked this, they've checked that, etc. It should be also retained in terms of any other work they've done on any parts of these systems and assets. And then always ask, this is what I find a lot of office managers and facilities managers don't do, and it's so simple when you think about it, but always ask for more information if you're unsure of what they recommend. And that's because we come back to that whole piece about jack of all, master of some, right? We are not necessarily born and bred facilities managers. We are not necessarily engineers or mechanics or electricians or plumbers, whatever, you know, trade it might be. So I think, one, to gain some learning and more insight if you're of that ilk and you want to understand and learn a little bit more about what's going on and what all these different systems do, ask, because that's the only way that I've ever learned. And but also because you want to make sure on behalf of your company that, you know, that £3,000 bill that they put in front of you to fix the air conditioning system and reprogram the actuators and the flow rates and the filters and all this other stuff that they might throw out at you, that you are understanding what that means. Get them to draw a diagram if needed, get them to let you, you know, poke your head up in the ceiling, or get them to take pictures to show you what all these different things are, because it's the only way that that you'll learn, and then be able to say to your managers with confidence, yes, this £3,000 is absolutely right, I've seen it, I've seen what it looks like as it should be and what it looks like in the broken version, and you can see the difference, or I now understand it. So I think that's a really good tip, hopefully, for you to ask. And plain English as well. If they start talking jargon, say, whoa, more English, please. In general, all buildings will clearly vary, both in terms of what systems are in place and who is responsible for maintaining them. So it's really important to understand, if you are a tenant and the whole building isn't yours, for example, who is responsible? Is it your landlord, who will probably have assigned it to a managing agent, who will probably have then assigned it to an engineering team? And the way that a lot of these companies work, JLL, CBRE, Cushman's, Jones Lang Sales, JLL, whoever it might be that your building is managed by in terms of that managing agent, they will have a preferred supplier list of engineering companies, mechanics companies, whatever you want to call them, that they will use for all of their buildings generally, or certainly regional buildings. So they will go out and tender annually, or look at who their contractors are annually, and agree who their preferred supplier will be for that particular service. So you probably won't be able to change it, because it's not just for your building, it will be for their group of buildings that they manage. But certainly, you know, if it's not working, raise it to your facilities manager or your managing agent, and make sure that you're having regular meetings with those engineers if they are doing things in your demise, which they probably will be. They'll include the costs for anything that they're responsible for, building wide and within your demise, within your premises, in your service charge, which is generally payable quarterly with your rent. You might have a difference to that, but that's generally what I see in buildings. tech here is responsible for what, using a handy list like the one on the portal, and I'll show you what that looks like after these slides. Or you can obviously just email the managing agent and find out who's responsible for what. Ideally, if you are due to move at any time, do this before moving into a premises. So when you start viewing offices and you perhaps narrow it down to 2 or 3 that your company likes, or when you know that's the one that you're going for and you're in the point of agreeing heads of terms, get that list over to your agent or directly to the managing agent if you've got their contact details, which would be great if you can get them directly, and find out who's responsible for what. It will start to give you a picture of how your job may suddenly then increase because you've got a lot more responsibilities, or decrease because actually the building looks after a lot of it and you may not mind about that so much, who knows. And also an idea of what direct costs you're going to have to pay for versus what will be in your service charge. Anyone that joined the webinar with Pulsar Building Consultancy a couple of weeks ago will know that you can do things like pre-validation surveys on the condition of all this equipment, all of these assets, and find out whether, you know, for example, if there's a really old air handling unit, AHU, on the roof, for example, that runs your air conditioning units, they might advise that actually, do you know, within the next 2 to 3 years, that probably will need to be replaced. Well, there's a big cost coming to you there. So all of this is doing some groundwork on, you know, predicting your spend, predicting your budget, predicting the work that you might have to do or that you might have to pass on to someone else to do. So do it before you move in, and then you'll know what to tender, because you'll probably have to look for a new M&E contract and look after that equipment. And as I say, we'll know what will fall outside of your service charge as well. So what to ask for within your building, and it depends. I was saying this the other day in another webinar, depends on how much of a pain you want to be, but this is what I would always recommend, particularly again if you've moved into a new building or you haven't asked for it in the past and you just want to do a little bit of a self-audit. I would recommend asking your building management landlord, whoever your contact is, the following. So a building fire risk assessment, they should all have those, as should you, for your own demise. Building occupation guide, or strategy, sometimes it's called as well. Sorry, 2 different things. Sorry, building occupation guide is all the rules about the building. So, you know, waste management and common parts and cleaning and those kind of things, operating hours, security, etc. And then the building occupancy strategy document, which is the 4th bullet down, is more about the design of the building and how many occupants are allowed within the building and per square foot or per square metre, and therefore for your floor. So again, before you move, ask for those documents, because it will help you determine what your maximum occupancy level could be over time. If you haven't got it and you're already in a building, then yeah, I would ask for it. It's quite an interesting thing to see as well. Building fit out guide. So again, if you're ever doing a fit out, be it because you're moving offices physically or because you're doing refurbishment in your own office, they should be able to produce that for you. It will talk about expectations in terms of permits to work, noisy work times, goods lift and usage there, and weight limits and protections that you might need to put in place in the goods lift and stairwells and things like that. So you can then pass that on to your contractor. Building water risk assessment, again, a really useful one, and I think really it will help you then determine, when you get your one done, which roughly should be every 5 years, or when you make a change to your water system, what the landlord's responsible for and where it kind of cuts off, because it might be that they have all the boilers and various bits on the roof. If you've got a chilled water system running through your air conditioning, all those kind of things will probably be their responsibility. But then obviously the taps and showers and yeah, you know, those kind of things, sinks, etc., will be your responsibility if they sit in your demise. So it will help your risk assessor to see where that line is drawn. And again, it's learning, I think, for you to see all about risk assessments in that manner. A cleaning schedule and areas and frequency covered. They might not like you for this one, but I still think it's interesting to see. And if you think, for example, that the cleaning is really well done there, you might want to sort of mimic something that they've got in place for their common parts for your own office without having to change your contractor over. Also, obviously, the negative of that is if you think it's not being done very well, you can comment and say, well, it doesn't look like you're doing, you know, you say you're going to do hard floor scrubbing once a week, but I've seen this stain on the floor 3 weeks now and it's definitely not being done. O&M, operations and maintenance manuals for your floor. If you don't already have them, hopefully your landlord or managing agent will have had a copy from when the last tenant did the last works, or even if that was your predecessor and they didn't hand them over to you, hopefully they'll have a copy of those, because whenever you do works in your building, really no matter what degree, particularly if it attracted a license to alter and an LTA approval from your landlord, that probably went through your managing agent as well, then they often request a copy of them once the works are practically complete and signed off. So they should have those. Base build drawings, the original drawings for your floor prior to any fit out going in. So prior to any temporary partitions or other works going in, just the bare bones of your floor. And it's really good then for things like doing dilapidations, and just again interesting to see what your floor looks like in what they call a Cat A condition rather than Cat B, which is where you have the fit out on top of it. And regular tenant meetings, if they don't hold them, my advice, and if they won't hold them, is to start your own. Contact all the other tenants, go knocking on their doors if you haven't got their email addresses, and say, hey, does anyone want to start tenant meetings? And get to know them, get to know what other contractors they're using, tell them about the office management portal, yeah, and get to know your other tenants, because you learn so much by doing that. In the last building that I worked in permanently before I set up the business, we did have, and I'm still in touch with him now, so I get on with him very well, but we did have tenant meetings quarterly, but we weren't allowed to talk at them, genuinely. We were not allowed to talk at them. So having come from a building where I got on incredibly well with the building manager and all the team, to the point that when I actually left, they flourished me with more gifts than my own company did, actually. So I still pop in and see them sometimes. And where you can be vocal, where you can give your opinion, where you can make suggestions, to one where the guy used to be in the army, right? So I think this is where it came from, but you had to just sit there muted watching presentations, or you know, him talking at you without being able to say anything, was very much against my nature as a human anyway, and let alone, you know, my integrity in terms of my job and what I was doing for my company. So I started my own. And I think out of like 7 or 8 tenants in the building, we got up to about 5 or 6 people coming regularly. And I went and met with a lot of them individually for a while to build that relationship up to the point where we could then have those meetings. And then a new building manager came in, and he just assumed the pattern of meetings that we were in, completely scrapped the other ones. So he almost came into our meetings really with the engineering lead and the head of like the cleaning team, so that we could give them feedback and stuff. So yeah, if you don't have them and they won't do them, then start your own. If you do have them, hopefully you have a right to speak. It is madness, I totally agree. Yeah, it was, honestly, it was crazy. So yes, make sure that they're happening, because it's really important. Again, it's more learning for you and experience sharing, and you'll learn so much more about what goes on in the building and what's coming up that year. They should also hold for you service charge meetings, ideally, so they'll go through, it's a bit later than the year end of service charge, because it takes them a while to reconcile everything and see where the balance is at. But you might get reports, and I should have put this on here actually, but you might get reports at the end of each financial year, whenever that may fall for your managing agent, in terms of what the spend has been on service charge and what it's been spent on. And then it will have hopefully another report in there showing their proposed budget for the coming year as to what they need to do. So if, for example, the lifts need replacing, you're going to have a much higher service charge probably than you would have done in the previous year. But they might then scale back on some other things. So you should have access to that. And again, my recommendation would be that they hold a service charge meeting when those reports are made public to you, so that you can go through it and question and challenge anything, because it is your money. You're their client as much as they're your client as such. So yeah, I think it's a really, really important two-way street with that relationship. gone off track a little bit there, but hopefully that helps. I'm just going to check because I think we had a question here. I've just sent the Q&A landlord building management to document and portal to the tenant we're subletting from in the new building we're about to move to. I also added a column for them to put in who they currently use for the topics on the sheet to see if we can continue to use the same companies. Okay, cool. Good. Okay, well, shall I show you that? Where's my... Here we go. I'll show you that very quickly now on the portal before I move on so that it's still relevant. Let me just bring this up, just bear with me a second. Let's pop the portal over here. Can everyone see that okay? Hopefully you can. Let's bring that chat back up. Okay. So I think it's under facilities management and landlord queries. Here we go. So landlord building management queries. So this is the one I was talking about where, like Hayley's just said, she sent it off to them to find out who's responsible for what. And if you haven't already done this, you might already know and be comfortable, but it might just be a check that you want to do now anyway and find out in case you're not doing all these things. Obviously, if you are and you know it's you, that it sits with them, fine. And there might be other things to add to this as well that you want to put in there, but it's a really simple list. You send it to them and say, can you fill this in? And you're talking about your demise. One of the landlords I sent it to on behalf of a client recently filled it in as if it was common areas, which my assumption would be that all common areas are their responsibility and not the tenants. But anyway, so we had to clarify that, but it is the tenant's demise as it says up here. So yeah, they would just go through and say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So that is that list there. Let's pop back to the slides. Okay, so moving on from maintenance to cleaning. Now, cleaning is clearly a really important part of any business. It promotes a really happy, healthy environment that's also safe for your staff to work in. And cleaning is part of health and safety, as we're obviously understanding more now than ever. It will be likely entered into a contract, probably annually or perhaps longer. I would try and avoid going into contracts that are longer than 12 months with a cleaning company if possible. So try and push it down to a year or very most 2 years. You just don't want to be stuck with a cleaning company for that long without perhaps some really good termination clauses in there. Unless you employ your cleaners directly via PAYE, which some people I think on this call do as well, because I remember seeing some people mentioning it in the forum. But yeah, unless you employ your cleaners directly, you will probably have a contract. And common areas that require cleaning are, and these are common bigger areas, I haven't included everything in here, toilets and showers, kitchenettes, tea points. We don't call them kitchens just in case anyone thinks I'm nuts instead of putting kitchen here, because if you call it a kitchen, particularly when you're doing a fit out and you put that on your documents, your building regs person that needs to look at your fit out and approve it from a building regs perspective will pick up on kitchen and think you're actually cooking, and that's a whole heap of other stuff that has to go in there. So you call it kitchenette or tea point, for anyone that was wondering what I was on about there. Desk space and surfaces, carpets, waste bins, glass internal and external, including your glass partitions and doors, like glass and handles. So they're the general items. Much like a PPM calendar, you may have in place or wish to have a cleaning schedule agreed with your contractor. I would absolutely recommend that you do. It's a really good way to ensure that you can use this on audit as well, so doing weekly or monthly checks, or I would hope that your cleaning contractor is doing weekly checks without you, and that you either get a copy of that report or you then do them with them probably monthly. Make sure that all of those things are being done, and if not, then there's a reason why. Ensure you cover to what height your regular cleaning team will work at. This will probably be in the contract somewhere, or it might be something that you discuss at the point of tendering, but it's really important for you to understand what height they consider to be the maximum that they'll clean to. For example, I've got like shelving units and things behind me. Will they clean to those, or do they consider whatever that is, 2 meters or whatever, to be too high? So understand that, particularly if you have got high units and lockers and things like that someone's got to reach the top of, because you don't want one day to do a housekeeping check and realise it's full of dust and have that conversation with your cleaning team almost too late. Also, obviously, high-level cleaning is considered slightly more dangerous because they'll have to get on an elephant's foot or toe, whatever it's called, and a ladder of some sort or staff tower. So you want to make sure that you understand where that line is drawn, and then obviously any additional cleaning that's considered working at height will probably be chargeable for you. And ensure that low-level cleaning is in there for your skirting, and perhaps even spot check cleaning on carpets. I managed to get it into some of my contracts before where if we had really lovely, expensive cream carpets in our office, and we were in an investment bank where coffee was drunk like you can imagine, you know, more than hot dinners really. So yeah, there were a lot of stains on the carpets and no real care or concern, particularly when I first started working there, from the staff about reporting spillages. So I got the evening shift of cleaners, the supervisor, to do a spot check, and once a week, twice a week, I think something like that, we'd agreed that she would go around and try and remove the stains before they were then really ground in and much more difficult to pick up when we did a scheduled carpet deep clean where they would focus on getting the stains out. So even if they just tackled it slightly just to get them out, you know, once they're a fresher, rather than really trying to get them out, just to give it a bit of TLC before it was too ground in. You might be able to get that. Yeah, we've already talked about the audit, so just a few bits there. And then periodic cleans are the areas that you may want done in addition to your daily or regular cleaning, whatever circumstances you have it. And these will cover things like windows, so internal and external glass, partitions as well, carpet deep cleans, and there's various methods available, so you should talk to your cleaning contractor about that. All sorts of different machines and chemicals and things that they can use. Lots of environmentally friendly ones out there now as well, so have a look at those if you haven't already. Hard floors, again, lots of different chemicals and machines available, and it will very much depend on what your hard floor is made up of. The O&M manuals that I referred to earlier when we were talking about maintenance and what to ask from your managing agent, if you have got them already or you're going to ask for them, when you get them, you'll have a look at, I think it will probably be, you'll probably have a few sections, but you'll probably hopefully have like a manuals or warranties section, which will talk about the various different materials and products that are in your office. So let's say, for example, they installed a dishwasher, you'll have the operating manual in there. It will also hopefully have a guide in each of the sections where you've got materials like your toilet sink surface and the worktop there, and your kitchen worktop and your hardwood marble floor, whatever it might be, all these products that they've used, it should have a cleaning guide in there. So when you're doing a new fit out, so like Hayley's moving office, when you come to do your fit out, make sure that you share that part of the guide, the relevant bits about cleaning products and methods, with your cleaning team. You may have seen, this is an odd one, right? This is how my brain operates, it's a photographic memory, but when you lift toilet seats sometimes, there's a sticker, right, that says about the cleaning methods and what to use and what not to use. It's kind of like that. So do pass that information on to your cleaning team to make sure that they're using the right products. Again, in an office I worked in, when I started working there, I did an audit with the cleaning company and realised when I looked to tender it that another company said to me they've been using the wrong chemical on this, and the sink in both male and female toilets, the worktop was really badly damaged. It had watermarks all over it and you just couldn't get them out. If you just cleaned it, it looked okay, but then, you know, within a few hours it would look bad again. And it's basically because they were using the wrong product the whole time from when they went in there and did the fit out. So it can have an impact on all that lovely money you're spending or your company's spending on fitting it out. So keep an eye on that. Chairs, desk and meeting room table chairs as well. So often doing fabric cleans on those. I think I've got a schedule in the portal. If not, I've got a draft one to put in somewhere that recommends a frequency of periodic cleans, or it might be part of the tender document for cleaning that's in there. I'll have a look in a sec. IT equipment, screens, mice, keyboards, laptops, desktops, etc. Something that you might want to look at putting in place once we'll go back to the offices soon, hopefully. Or if you have got it in place already, just perhaps increasing that frequency because they're touch points. Comms room cleaning, high level and low level, and it's often with an anti-static cleaning method as well, because you don't want static in somewhere like that. Often what I mean by high level is the ceiling clean, which is quite specialist, and often in your comms rooms the ceiling's exposed, but also low level, and that's not the raised access floor tiles, that's actually below the raised access floor that you'll want them to get in and give a good clean. Ceilings, and don't let them do what my old cleaning team did, which I saw on CCTV, was standing on plastic chairs that were in the comms room to do the high level cleaning. Definitely not okay. Ceiling cleans, so ceiling tile cleans. If you ever look up at your ceiling tiles, you might want to get them cleaned. It is a high cost to do it, so I would just do it probably once a year or every other year, but it does make a difference. So ceiling cleans. Lighting and light fixing, especially if you've got things like feature lights in your kitchen, they're probably not included unless they're most people consider working at height or cleaning to height basically what the cleaner can reach. So if they're high feature lights, then they probably won't be cleaning them, so have a look at that and check that that's in there as well. Cleaning contracts, a few things to look for and consider with your contract. At least 1 year, as I said, to protect you and them. Equal termination rights. So a lot of people will put in their contract that you know, it's more weighted on them and it's more favourable to them because it's their company, their contract. A lawyer will have been paid a lot of money to write it for them. But you want to try and bring that balance slightly back over to you as the client to make sure that you've got some equal rights in there about termination. So if they say, for example, we can terminate this contract at any time with 3 months notice for any reason, well, I would challenge, why can't you do the same? Even if it's in that initial term period or whatever it might be. The complaints process, really important, because there probably will be complaints, liabilities and limits and their insurance. Make sure you get a copy of that. SLAs and KPIs may be appended as a schedule to the contract, so looking at certain key performance indicators they should hit, and it could just be that cleaning schedule that they should be doing daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Notice period, and remember to meet your account manager and your day-to-day contact. Really important. A lot of people that will come and see you about cleaning contracts will be your salesperson, so make sure that you meet with the person that you will then be dealing with once that contract's signed day to day. Other cleaning tips, make sure the chemicals are locked away, so the cleaners or the cleaning company are responsible for those chemicals. They the things they use to clean daily shouldn't be things like the fairy liquid and stuff that you buy as the normal consumables. They should be their own specialist chemicals, whatever they might be, and they should be locked away from your staff for health and safety reasons. Their insurance is displayed, so if they've got a cleaning cupboard or an area, their own public liability insurance should be displayed, and an employee liability insurance should be displayed. A manual for their staff should be easily available, and this talks about all the different things in terms of their products and their methods and their training and certifications and all those kind of things. Make sure that your cleaning products are included in their price, other than the consumables. So again, like fairy liquid, waste bins, dishwasher tablets, all those kind of things will be outside of the cleaning contract cost. But things like the desk cleaner, whatever they use for that, should be included, and the bleach and all the things they use to clean the toilet should be included in the cost. Different cloths should be used for different areas. I have seen it on client sites where they are literally using the same coloured cloths or even the same cloths to clean the kitchens, or kitchenettes I should say, and bathrooms. And clearly no one wants that. There should be different colours for each. And meet the team. It's a really important thing, I think, particularly if you've got a bigger premises, to go in early if they're on an early shift. I know it's a bit painful sometimes, but it really goes a long way to go and meet the team and say hi, or stay late and do it just once, or maybe, you know, once a year, whatever it might be that suits you. But go and meet the cleaners and just say, oh, you know, I'm Hannah, I'm the facilities manager or office manager here, it's nice to meet you, and you're doing a great job, or what, you know, whatever it might be. But I think it just goes a long way to keep the motivation in that cleaning team there. Consider having a supervisory role over a day cleaner or a senior cleaner if you have one. And I only mean this really if they're there during working hours. So say you have a lunch cleaner or a cleaner for the whole day, consider asking your cleaning company if you can have some sort of non-managerial supervisory role over them, so that you can have that day-to-day contact and perhaps have one-to-ones with them once a month, and really build that relationship and see how you can invest in them and get them to do more for you if the hours allow. To give you an example of something I mean, we had a guy called Peter who worked for us in one of my old companies, and he always did like extra hours, only sort of 15-20 minutes a day. Sometimes it was an hour, but all of that obviously added up. And I said to him, you know, why are you doing it? You're not getting paid for it, etc., etc. I really appreciate it, but what's going on? And anyway, we came to an agreement where he didn't need to, because actually the way he was cleaning and the way he'd always been told to clean by the cleaning company just made no sense. So he was having to go back to certain areas twice. And I said, but we don't need it like that anymore. We've had some changes in the business, blah, blah, blah. So it saved him time, and it meant he could go home and spend time with his kids earlier and things. You might find things out like that from having that kind of relationship and having that sort of day-to-day or week-to-week contact with the people that are cleaning regularly for you in the day. And I eventually made one of my head senior receptionists manage him. I say made, that sounds awful, but I appointed her as his sort of supervisor, manager, day-to-day, so that they had a really good relationship. And then she could obviously come to me with any issues and things. And we ended up promoting him and paying him more money through his company, and gave him more responsibilities. So yeah, it was a really good thing to do. And of course he paid over every time, and is still there, I believe. Every time they changed the cleaning contract, the new company, he moves with them. Yeah, so if you can use their support elsewhere, what can you do? Another example in my last employment was that we had an awful lot of meetings. We had this amazing meeting room suite. It was really plush. They had like a pen and a pad and Hilton water and really wonderful water glasses. It was incredibly plush. And we were getting the receptionists to set those meetings up. And what that meant is that they were away from their desks, or the reception desks, for the majority of the day, because we had so many meetings going on, particularly when we had like 20, 30, 40 person meetings. Anyway, we increased the day cleaners hours by, I think, 1 or 2 hours, something like that, and we got her to do it. Except for when she was on a lunch break, but generally she would always try and set the meetings up before her lunch break. Obviously we would have short notice meetings and things, but we got her to do all that setup, taking away the old water cups and putting clean ones out and things, and it just gave so much time back to our reception staff that I was then able to get them to help out on more of the office management side, which was more beneficial because I could then do other things that the company wanted me to do. So it really kind of flowed up in that chain. So yeah, just hopefully some food for thoughts there. You can tube air cleaner over, yeah. You will, I think you would need to give notice, much like you would as if you were terminating the contract, or if you're talking about just an individual cleaner, you will need to have that conversation. There'll probably be a clause in your contract, which is the sort of non-poaching clause. You may have heard of that before, but basically, if any company, like if I came into your company under my consultancy and I brought one of my employees with me, and then you approached them to employ them directly, I could basically sue you for the equivalent of what it would cost to hire that person. So I might say, right, the fee is 20% of what I pay them in their annual salary, or what you've chosen to pay them as a fee to hire them. And there'll be a non-poach thing when you exit a contract. If you terminated that contract and they take that cleaner with them, or whoever with them, it might be for sort of 6 months after the end of that contract that you can't approach their staff and take them and hire them. And that's generally the case in most contracts where you're using external staff or contractors. So I would probably, to be honest, have an open conversation with your cleaning company and find out what their thoughts are there. It depends on the relationship with the cleaner, but if you trust them, you could have the conversation with them discreetly before then as well. But it depends on how much you trust that they won't tell their employer, because you don't want to go behind their back. Okay, So hopefully that helps on cleaning. I didn't really want to go into too much detail about cleaning itself because, you know, we all have houses we run and cleaners in the offices, so we know what cleaning is and looks like. So yeah. So energy is often something that people fear, and I definitely was in that bracket for a long time. You know, I was hoping I'd never see energy part of my job description, but I'm less fearful of it now. And it's usually dealt with by your landlord. So generally, you'll receive a monthly bill, probably from a metered usage of your water, your electricity, gas, whatever it might be that you're metered on. If it's not, then you may have to supply readings to your supplier or your landlord, or obviously manage that directly yourself. Some buildings may have a fixed rate for utilities and water rather than metered. So again, much like at home, you can choose to obviously pay a fixed rate for your water or have it metered, something like that. So it's worth checking out, particularly in areas outside of London. It differs quite a lot. Consider your plant running times. So your plant being where your main building services come from, like for example the air handling unit that I mentioned earlier that runs your air conditioning systems, and your fan coil units and those kind of things. Consider or find out what your plant running times are and see if you can change them if they're not suitable. So let's say, for example, you have a few people working late regularly over the summer and it's really hot in the offices. Can you change the plant running time so that your air conditioning runs slightly later? Obviously, you will pay more money because you're using up more energy, but if it is better for your staff in terms of them getting fresh air, which generally comes through your aircon system, and you know, you get less complaints as a result, is that something you can change? Or the opposite, which is you know, if the building run the plant from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, but your company generally works from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, I doubt it, but if they do, why are you paying for those extra 5 hours a day for the plant to run if you don't need it? Is there a way that your floor can run at different times? Sometimes there aren't, they're all interconnected, or sometimes they run the plants 2 floors at a time. So if you want to change the times, your neighbour above or below you, if it's not your own demise, will need to change their plant times as well. But it's worth finding out what the plant operating times are and whether it suits you or not. And if you do have a say, it's worth benchmarking your energy consumption and your bills and things much like you would at home. It's really easy to do, particularly if you engage with someone like an energy or utility broker. Coming on to that, so there are lots of people out there that do this kind of thing. There's like Utilities Warehouse that do businesses and domestic comparisons. There's all sorts. If anyone ever wants any contacts, let me know because I've got a few. But always try your existing suppliers too. Again, much like you would at home, you know, challenge your British Gas or whoever it might be to see what tariff they can do. They should be able to let you know if there's a cheaper tariff available and save you money. There's some great green energy companies out there as well. I'm using one called Bulb at home, and they've not only saved us money, but we know that we're a lot greener, and those kind of companies exist for commercial properties as well. So have a look at those if you're interested in ticking that green sustainability box. Find out who the other tenants use. Again, another thing you can get from your tenant meetings, as there may be a better deal available. I've spelt there wrong there, that's terrible. This is me pulling this together late one night this week. And much like at home, it's very straightforward to switch, as I say, so it's not too painful. It's, I think, probably just more the thought of doing it, as I say, it's a bit scary. And that's it, pretty much bang on the hour. So hopefully that has been helpful. I think one of our members, might have been Hayley actually, and another person had asked for something on facilities management. So I hope that's geared to how you wanted it or hoped it would go. If not, let me know and I'll pull some other stuff together. But yeah, as a taster, that is what I would cover under all about facilities management. I heard Bulb might pay off my current British Gas contract, so I don't have any experience. Yeah, I heard that as well. I think they can give you credits towards it. So I know we got some credits. So I think they'll either give you credits or for joining or pay off the bills. So yeah, give them a call. They're really good. We can talk about home energy if you want as well. And all the savings and things we can make. Pleasure. Good. Okay, glad it was useful. That's great. Fab. If anyone got any questions, how would you go about putting a facilities manual together in case you are not there and people need help? In terms of the facilities management side and all the bits we've covered, Will, rather than any office management side. I mean, assuming that's a yes, I would say probably to take some of my slides really as a starting point, because some of those bullets will give a really nice outline in a manual as to what some of the areas mean, like for example PPM calendar. So being able to talk someone through what that is and then put or a troubleshooting guide. I would personally start by speaking to your engineering team and see if they can pull some stuff together for you. Go through what your normal practice is, so what you would normally do day to day with your regular contacts and your regular contracts. I would say probably to have a schedule in there of some sorts as to what you do and how often checks are done if you don't have it in a format like a PPM calendar or anything as sophisticated as that. Yeah, I'll have a think and I'll see if there's anything I can put together there as well to help as a starter. But it depends on which way you're going. Are you doing it, yeah, like as a troubleshoot to say what to do if this happens or this happens? And again, it depends on what you've got in place in terms of contracts to help with that, because generally it might just be pick up the phone and refer it to them. If you guys deal with it yourselves, then I think you probably need to go into a fair bit more detail as to what steps to take and provide them with, you know, your suppliers and service providers that you get parts from, how you work out who would do it, qualifications, risk assessments. You know, you're going into a whole sort of other area there that will be a lot deeper. So yeah, I'll give that some thought and see if I can pull something together soon on that as well. Yeah, giving me things to do here, guys. Okay, was there anything else I was going to show you in the portal? Does anyone want to see like the cleaning tender document or anything? Let's have a look and see what might be useful. Oh, my Google's gone weird. Proactive maintenance tasks, here we go. So this might be something you want to use. Now, as well as your legislative items, there's other things that you can get. Yeah, feel free to drop off if you're not if you need to go or not interested in any more bits. But these are things that I would probably look at getting them to do in addition to your mechanical and electrical equipment, particularly if you've got hours that you buy daily, weekly, and they're often twiddling their thumbs, or you don't see them and you're not sure exactly what they're up to. Or if they're on site and you have the hours and that luxury, I would get them to go around and do checks on things like the floor boxes and make sure that they're all in place and that the little plastic bits aren't a trip hazard and so on. Doors, check door handles on cupboards and get them to tighten them up in toilets and things. I know someone that genuinely got locked in the toilet because the door handle fell off and she couldn't get out. And I just not long before warned my client about checking door handles regularly. Bulb replacements, the obvious one, but keeping bulbs in stock, chairs, tiny chairs, whiteboards, TVs, all these things that are fixings and fittings to your office, you know, to check. It's a good safety check to do. So you can elaborate on that sort of list. What else have we got? PAT plan, I think we looked at another time, but that's in there. Facilities task tracker, what was this that I put together? Some of these I made so long ago. Let's have a look. Okay, right, so this is tickets. So I guess this could be a good one for you if you're not in the office, that all tasks they need to put in here to show what needs fixing. So, you know, what the issue is, what the action is, who it's assigned to, who's completed it, photos, etc., etc. So it's quite a good thing if you've got a bigger team as to what people might need to do once they've done housekeeping checks or something's been reported to you there. Let's have a look. General office management, I think, is the wrong bit. Where's our cleaning? Cleaning. cleaning comparisons tender. So this one, I think, when I mentioned, that includes some bits about, here we go. So this one's quite extensive. This is a summary that you would see once you've got all your costs and things back and how many hours, etc., etc. But these are the queries that you might want to ask your contractor when you're going through a tender process. So some, you know, again, you can edit these as you wish, but some useful information in here, and training procedures and supervisors and that kind of thing, to get a good insight. And then products as well. So although you'll have your cleaning products hopefully included in your contract, and they should be, your consumables you can obviously generally buy from your cleaning company, so you can compare those costs as well as the actual cleaning contract costs. But yeah, quotes and what areas you want them to clean and hours and that kind of thing, so that's in there. I think that's probably it in terms of the documents. There's probably some other ones. Oh, like housekeeping, you've got a cleaner's daily checklist here actually, so that might be useful. So if you do have a daytime cleaner, this might be something that you want to give to them to go through and check. Yeah, so they can sort of go through showers and toilets a couple of times a day and office sweep round and that kind of thing, because generally your cleaning schedule will be done on a day, week, month view rather than actually a whole shift for a day. If you do have a cleaning person in for most of the day or part of the day, you might want to give them your own tasks. So hopefully that helps. Any other questions or comments or template requests? Okay, right, I shall let you go and enjoy the warmer weather today. Have a lovely afternoon. I'll see you soon.